Welcome to It's a Controls Problem, where we do precision guesswork based upon unreliable data given to us by those of questionable knowledge. I'm your host, Charles Johnson. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Charles Johnson. I am the host of It's a Controls Problem. And we have Matthew Vanberg here. He is just equally as important. Actually, I think he's more important than me. He really does all the. You do all the heavy lifting. I just sit on the couch and eat Cheetos. No, it's not Cheetos. It's really Oreos. That's kind of my vice. But anyway, so we have this is a really special episode here. I am really honored for this person to be here because as some of you know of my history, when I grew up in controls, I really kind of started very, very young. When I was a young warthog, and my dad kind of took me in and whatnot. And, when I was 18, I just got thrown into the controls world, and I've been doing it ever since. And I really was in a unique position. But speaking of unique positions, we have here the founding educator of Stacks+Joules. His name is Mike Conway. And for those of you who do not know what Stacks+Joules is, it's actually a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to bridging technology or the technology opportunity gap by providing specialized training in computing programming for building automation controls. And I know that they do more as well. But the program really engages students by connecting their creative passions, offering a hands-on activities. It yields immediate gratifying results. And so through projects like programming wireless LEDs to synchronize with music, students can help gain this deep understanding of computerized building automation systems. And so, and what they do is they actually also connect them with industry professionals, and even they facilitate paid internships as well. And so, Mr. Conway here has been he has 20 years of experience. I think it's 20 or maybe over 20 of being a teacher and a leader. And so I believe you worked as a faculty coach before founding Stacks+Joules, working with teachers to implement project-based learning. So
yes, yeah, and even a little more specifically was I was coaching faculties and schools, public high schools in Los Angeles that were just beginning to set up CTE pathway programs. And my schools were focused on engineering or environmental pathways. So been working with the CTE teachers to kind of develop out their course sequences so that it was kind of aligned with those areas, but then working with the whole faculty so that the whole school would start to connect to those themes. So even in the English classes and the history classes, working with the teachers to create connections to that theme. So it's really about, making learning meaningful and making learning come alive. And that's certainly carried over into my work with Stacks+Joules.
So great. Actually, that leads me to my first question. I have a few questions here, obviously. So can you walk us through the journey of the idea to reality for Stacks+Joules? Like, how did the name originate, and even what core values drive your organization's mission?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, we got to go way back because my co-founder John Spooner. We are best friends from second grade. This is Davidson's second grade classroom, and just stayed really tight and close throughout the years. And so John's background is technology. So while I was pursuing my career in teaching math and then coaching schools, he was working with Alphabet and other companies on smart cities initiatives in New York City. With a real, focus on IoT, and so he was really, really steeped in that world. And just being best friends, best buddies. I was especially in the second half of my career really focused on working with individuals and communities that hadn't been successful in math and specifically, but in education in general. And so, you know, contextualizing it, making it meaningful, project-based learning was just a really, really strong approach to work with that. And I'd go to my best bud for ideas, like how to make it really relevant, how to start to cross over really employable, valuable skills with the math, content and standards that I was teaching. So it was, just little by little, a project here, a project idea there, and so it grew out of that. I'd say when it really like started to take root was when I was working doing the CTE coaching, and I saw that like a lot of teachers would think of project-based learning as just like a cute sort of dessert at the end of a unit, and I saw it as a driver of the most complex learning, and so I wanted to create a really robust sort of example project that I could engage the teachers I was working with in as an example of like, look, this is where you can go, and so that's where Stacks and Joules came in. We started off with the Python programming and the lighting, and with direction from my brother, who is an engineer in the BAS space. Just started to dial it in. And as I saw it being successful in that environment and how engaging it was, but also that these companies were really getting behind it, like really needing talent and getting involved because they saw this potential for getting talent from sources that they hadn't been looking at before. So that's when we saw the potential. We said, okay, well, you know what? Let's give it a go. We're going to launch off and let's do this.
Awesome. I think like to have specializations, especially in the building automation sector. There, obviously there's Smart Buildings Academy, there's
Yeah.
you and I mean, there's even like Pennsylvania College of Technology and a few others there, but it's still a wide, like it's still like this niche market that still is kind of really untapped. People are continuously looking for people with experience, or even people who think they have experience may not even necessarily, or may even be out of their depth in certain cases. So it's very interesting to like talk to even like a lot of headhunters around. They're like, hey, we're continuously looking for all these positions here, and it's amazing to see what is still open. So like the world is pretty much their oyster when they come out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had asked about like our mission and vision and what sort of centers us. And so where we are within that excuse me, sort of talent development range is our focus is on bringing in very, very new talent, like people that haven't had technical training, people that haven't had a background, really, as we describe it, overlooked and unexpected. And so our methods, our approach, and as we're working with companies, with very, very clear about that. Um, what what drives that at the core of our work is just this core value and belief that talent is actually abundant, and it is that we have been overlooking big sources of talent that we, as a society, sort of hadn't had to go as deeply into. But now we're in a situation, excuse me, just demographically, in terms of like, skill gaps, but also just in terms of numbers, the numbers of people retiring and the fact that incoming generations are getting smaller. We've got to make, find the talent in these places where we haven't looking. We need it. So it's a mission-based approach to bring opportunity to those that haven't been had access or haven't been experiencing it. But it's also a very practical approach around we can't continue to think we're going to solve these talent issues by fishing in the same ponds we've always been fishing in. Those ponds are getting smaller. There's less in them, and so our approach is to come in very early and have this boot camp style approach to get people up to speed.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, and it's actually something that I've kind of talked to Matthew at large about. Is obviously, like, so I've been in the industry now, in the BAS industry. Well, I've been paid to do it for uh, uh, basically 22 years, or yeah, no, 24 years. But I've been working with it for for significantly longer. Um, but obviously having that unique experience, I learned from the ground up. And as you pointed out, the dinosaurs are retiring, right? They're leaving. And some even approach a mentorship with a lot of gatekeeping, which is really unfortunate, because these younger people, they're hungry and they want to learn, but you have to learn multiple trades at once, right? You have to learn the mechanical side because you have to figure out how the systems work, and
What are
then you
the
need.
sequence and what are the
Yep.
components and what are the units of measure that you're dealing with? And yeah,
That's right. And so the younger people now can actually understand the how, but or can do the how now, but not necessarily the why. So like some can like just read a sequence and they can start putting it together, but then they're missing some nuanced things, that that if you had the that hands-on experience. So like it's trying to get them to understand that portion as well while learning, this brand new field, is I think is a difficult task for any educator, really. But we can't lose faith in the younger crowd because they're the ones that are going to have to carry us, for sure. Once we're long gone.
yeah,
Um,
and we're finding that there's just such so our focus is more and more on like the 18 to 24-year-old range. And so a typical profile is that they've been out of high school, excuse me, um, and they've had like low wage, um, low, kind of meaningless jobs, which were okay when they got right out of high school because they thought, hey, look at me, I'm earning. But they're still living at home or they're struggling. But when you get into those 20s, now they've been doing it for a while and they're starting to like think about their life and where is their life going, or they're struggling to support a family, like they have kids, or they have an extended family that they're trying to support, and they've experienced now that struggle that in New York City, no, you cannot live on even $18 an hour.
right.
That's not a living wage.
No.
And it's and so you've got to so that's where their hunger is coming from, right? And so they're really, really motivated. Um, and but they don't know directions to go. And so when you get them and you start giving them opportunity. Now, I will say this, because you touched on this, that a big part of our approach, and certainly when we're working with hiring partners, what we're vouching for, we're not saying that this is a field ready technician. We are vouching for the professional skills, right? So across 14 weeks, this individual has shown like near perfect attendance. Uh, they can collaborate, so they get along with other people and they can communicate, which is really, really important in this industry because these are like the people that are front line, right? They're the ones who are interacting with your clients out in the building. But it's also technically communication is really, really important because you're never to a point where you have seen everything. And there's always some, maybe a combination of technologies, older and newer, or a new technology that you've never experienced, or an update that throws everything off. So you've got to be able to communicate what the issue is, what you've done to try to try to fix it, and then receive information, often over a phone, to get some expert help. So that communication, all of those professional skills are really important, and they're really strategically designed in our program. Now, the other big thing is we've put them through some high level, difficult technical learning. And so we're vouching for their ability to continuously learn technical content and skills. So they don't have the full repertoire, they don't have the full toolbox yet, but we're basically saying this is a really sure investment. You can be sure that in investing in this person, they're going to be capable, and they're going to be reliable, and as it turns out, they're going to be really loyal because of the opportunity that you're giving. So this is a really good investment.
Yes, so I can see, because one question I was going to ask was, about your diverse partnerships with tech companies and local communities, about navigating and cultivating those relationships. But you've definitely you definitely expounded on that. Speaking of the students, so just a few specifics on what specific skills can a student expect. So now, like, let's say we've got a person who's 18 to 24 who's kind of directionless right now. If they're listening to this podcast, what specific skills can they expect to gain from participating in your program?
Yeah, so it's really a focus on three main technical components. So we start off with Python programming, where you're really learning to read and use the Python coding, and it's in the context of lighting controls. So you're getting introduced to control strategies and just kind of control thinking. And within that, we use a bank of wireless LEDs that they're using Python to control. So you're also getting introduced to the basics of IT. So that's, programming, controls, IT right off the bat. So then we go into HVAC fundamentals, right? And we start with heat transfer, refrigeration cycle, the components of the system, and we use the EPA 608 certification as a driver of learning. So it's not focused on the mechanical aspects of actually, discharging or charging refrigerants. It's more about using it as a driver to learn about the components of the system and the sequence of operations and safety issues. But they do earn that certificate. And so then coming out of that, after going into some the larger systems, then we go into Niagara, and we train using the same training materials as Tritium uses for their certification. We just slow it down and make it more accessible. And so they're learning the Niagara workbench, they're building the simulated systems, and then connecting it to training panels, and getting your strikers to move, and your lights to flash, and your fans to run, and so there's that connection, and a little bit of low voltage wiring that goes along with that as well. So it's a lot. It's a lot over 14 weeks. It's ranging across, as you said, right? It's several areas. It's mechanical, it's electrical, it's IT, it's programming. It's what is really exciting about this industry and these jobs is they're it requires you to constantly learn. And as you learn and add to your skills, you become more valuable, and you get paid more. And so there's like a built-in advancement mechanism. If you stick with it and you really, commit yourself, you're going to advance. So So yeah, it's just a really bright future for a young person.
No, that's great. And I mentioned and I saw and I heard that you mentioned Striker, so good old Honeywell. Um, I actually don't mind those the configurable controllers. I actually I'm a fan of the Honeywell Striker series for sure. I have programmed a fair share of VAVs with it, so
Yep.
really and that's really a great tool to kind of first get into BAS of just like, hey, look, here's a configurable thing. You can set this up and you don't need to do like any real additional programming. Like, sure, you can manipulate the variables in Niagara to,
Yep.
to kind of do some extra things that you may not have expected to be able to do in the beginning. But lo and behold, you can actually do it. I really like the idea that you open up to Python. I think Python is a fairly an easier language to learn, and I think it's more intuitive than like JavaScript or Java. To be honest, I know a lot of people that cut their teeth on Python.
Yeah, and it
For
gives
sure.
that basic understanding of computer languages, right?
Yep.
Definitions, data types,
Methods. Yep.
functions,
Hmm.
methods, organization, commenting, all of that is what we're really focused on. So it's not we don't like double down on that they're going to be able to code something from scratch in Python. It's that they're
Sure.
given scripts,
Hmm.
they can understand what it's going to do. So really how we approach that is we give them a script on day one that just it flashes one light to two colors, and there are three lights in the kit. And so with that, then you just stand back. Okay, they're just basically typing it in, and of course they're making capitalization and all those syntax errors, and so they're learning to troubleshoot and the importance of precision. And then we step back and we say, okay, well, you got two colors on one light. Can you get any other colors, or can you get the other lights? Like, how do you think that's happening? And then they start experimenting. And so that's how they learn to use the code and to realize, like, oh, this block right here is where it's identifying the light, it's calling the light, and it's sending the signal. And oh, this thing with the three numbers is RGB, and that's how you mix. So they're really learning it through experimentation and trial and error. And it's a deep, right from the start, it's troubleshooting.
Good.
So it's
Yeah.
all there. I did want to say with the VAVs and things, yeah, like
Mhm.
the whole curriculum, all of the technical content has come by working with the companies that are looking to hire.
Mhm.
And so that focus on the VAVs, because typically the job that they are hired into um, is the BAS, field technician with a system integrator.
Mhm.
And the first roles that they're taking is they typically start off just building panels, right? And so they get
Yep.
that deep dive into the components and into that basic wiring and following schematics, and then it's check testing VAV boxes, right?
Mhm.
Hundreds of them, and that's where they're out there doing that. Usually on the install side, because it's pretty much the same thing every time, and they can get really steeped in it, and they can start cranking those out, and then they start getting getting the opportunity to go along on field calls with a mentor, and that's how they start to like expand beyond those first applications into uh, the more varied applications that you need to have exposure to in order to be really field independent.
Yeah. No, I mean that's certainly a great approach. Especially with our company, obviously, our market is our we we have a Niagara controller, right? So everything is done specifically in Niagara using Niagara blocks. And what I think is kind of interesting to see as I've come into the company is that I did not think it was going to be as difficult for some people as I originally thought, who kind of took on the product line. But when they're just used to, um, I don't know what all products you have, with companies. Obviously, you mentioned Stryker, so you got some Honeywell stuff. But like, you'll have people that like have Distech and they've done all GFX programming, and really like the J side is more like supervisory level, right? Like yeah, sure, they're linking maybe one value to another, but as far as like real logic, they're just doing scheduling, like alarming, trending, and histories, and they're not really building a lot of that logic. So all of a sudden, someone comes in, working with a straight Niagara controller with just Niagara IO. It's quite interesting to see how hard it is for them to kind of bridge that gap between what they know from the fundamental perspective into a new interface. And I try to demystify that a lot with people, where it's like, look, if you know that you have inputs and you have outputs, and those inputs need to turn on those outputs, it doesn't matter what's in front of you. As long as you understand how logic works specifically, I now just need to teach you where to find those blocks.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think that's I think that's really a big thing. And it always amazes me. One thing is, I teach hundreds of people a year. And so I go through, I meet all these people, from just software engineers to just straight mechanics to someone who literally just got a controls job, and they are in the class because it was the first class available right away. And so they have not touched anything, and even from people like who've never used a computer before and they're trying to click on something. I'm like, okay, we're going to get there. It's going to take a little bit, but we're going to get there. So, another question I have now would be like more job placement. So like beyond the initial job placement, what metrics do you use specifically to track to assess kind of like the long-term impact of programs in your students' careers?
Yeah. I mean, we stick with our graduates. So, I mean, the main thing that we track is did they get a job, and what's the rate of pay, and then we're checking in, constantly around how they're doing. Are they advancing? Have they gotten a raise? So yeah, it's really about like the job and the rate of pay. So we can look at retention, we can look at advancement, and those numbers are really, really promising. We have our first graduates are coming up on 3 years in the industry, and we have really, really strong retention, and they're advancing. I mean, one of the amazing things is that it's very localized to New York. Like, we thought we would have more candidates that would be open to relocation because of the opportunities nationally, but they're not. They're rooted in New York. Their families are there, their extended families. These are people that are looking to stay, and the result of that is that, the loyalty to the company. It's just a very, very sure investment. They're going to be sticking around. And so then now we've got this really virtuous, cycle going on, where our graduates who've been out there working are coming to our graduation events, which we run as like sort of like a cross between a science fair and a hiring fair. The graduating students are demonstrating aspects of what they learned at stations, and then we invite, the companies that are looking to hire, and they're just milling about and interacting. And a lot of our graduates are now coming to that event, and even beforehand, to help prepare the next sort of generation of Stacks grads. So yeah, it's just this really awesome cycle that's really starting to roll in New York.
I love that.
Yeah, definitely. As they come up, I invite all of you and anyone who can come. It's a really awesome experience.
I'm going to So there was a question I was going to ask later, but I think it's actually a good one to ask now. I'm really interested in learning more about this as well, and I would love to have. Obviously, we connected on LinkedIn. I definitely love to have a more offline conversation. But how can individuals and companies get involved and support your mission? Because I really think this is a great mission to have.
Yeah. So there's a range of ways to get involved. In any given cohort, we have a constant stream of professionals who are either zooming in or coming in person. It's just really, really important that so when someone comes in, we typically have them share just their career story, what got you here, and then something about their company and their job, and about possible opportunities within that. So that's the base, real easy way to interact with one of the classes, and that can be a 15 or 20-minute visit. And then a step up from there is, well, why don't you come in, do that, and teach something technical? It might be that we're in the Niagara section, and so a trick or a logical sequence that is something that you use all the time, and that would be helpful for them to learn, or just something that really stands out that's connected to the content. And then beyond that, it's hire as an intern to test it out, or hire and bring them on board and work with us to create a system that'll get them up to the standards that you need for your performance, and start rolling in the talent that you need in order to do the work that needs to be done.
That's no that that's it's really awesome. No, I really the more I hear about it, I definitely would love to donate some time.
Yeah.
And maybe I will obviously I'm going to talk with some higher ups after this, and maybe we can even help get some of our product in there for them to really kind of get involved with even different things, because like some of our controllers are full wave and some are half wave, and I think that's even important to understand as well from the wiring side, what a full wave rectified device is versus a half wave, and how to wire them together to make sure that we don't let the magical smoke out of those controllers. So
Right.
I think that would be
Right. Definitely.
yeah. I definitely
Yeah, we
will
do
post
that
that.
all the time. We've got a couple initiatives right now. We're working with Sam Shawarma from
Distech.
Distech, and he came in to our last cohort and did a 2-day training, just really focused on some Niagara tricks. But now we're working with him on a Distech VAV trainer. So it's going to expand to a more robust interaction and have a physical element to it. We're working with Delta Controls on a really exciting project where actually the electricians are there. So our partner in New York City is a community-based organization called Henry Street Settlement, and they own and operate like 18 buildings that they use for like housing and childcare and classes and gyms and performance space, all that they do as an organization. And so we've taken one of those buildings, we've identified it, and we worked with Burrow Happold, the engineering firm, with Google, Autodesk, um, and Delta Controls, sort of analyzed the needs, which are huge. Like basically, it was a dark building, like literally on off, very, very few thermostats. So now we're starting to implement just some very basic controls to just monitor, just to start getting data off the system so that we can see what's happening. And throughout this whole process, we've been engaging with our students. Whatever cohort's there is engaging in that process. We're turning it into a real like living lab, so an actual building with actual controls, and we use it, to learn in a very, very real way how this stuff is used to make a building run better. So So that kind of interaction, we've got the initial relationship with Tritium and Niagara and some Honeywell trainer boards. We're developing the one with Distech. We've got this whole building going on with Delta Controls. We're really giving as much exposure as we can within, again, a real boot camp style approach, because those that we work with, they need to work. They need to get into a job that's meaningful as quickly as possible. And the companies that we're partnering with, they need people like right now. So that's what I mean by the virtuous cycle, is like, we do this, we are mission focused, and the mission is focused on who we serve, those who've haven't had opportunity. But it's also coming back to that very practical approach. Like, it really only works for the individual who needs opportunity if it's a viable, market serving solution, that it's good for the companies. And so one of the things that tells us we know we're on the right track is one of our partners, our largest partner, Tech Systems in New York. They've hired 18 of our graduates over 3 years. So that tells us they're coming back. They're coming back for more. They keep coming back. They just made a new hire. So actually, I think we're at 19 now that I say it, because
Wow.
we just heard that they hired one from the last cohort. So they're not doing that out of philanthropy. That's 19 salaries.
Yeah.
They're doing that because it is driving the success of their business. And so then we can look at other companies that are starting to get up to multiple hires, where we've got, multiple now at Alberio Energy. We've got multiple at Climatech. We're starting to break through to Environet, and we've had some hires at Automated Logic and Johnson Controls. So that's the pattern that's going. And what really tells us that we're on track is when we get these repeat customers.
That's awesome. So I'm assuming with the with the Delta building or buildings, I'm assuming they're using Red 5 in those.
Yes.
In those. Okay. And then for Distech, are you doing just ECY VAVs or ECB and ECYs?
We've got 2 of each. We're developing panels, 2 of each, so that we'll set up like stations, and the students will rotate through the stations, so they get exposure to both of those.
And I really like that, because not only are they getting, they're getting the GFX side, they're getting the block programming side, they're getting the GCL plus side as well. So so now they're getting, they're now broadening their horizons, where they're learning not only that you can use graphical block programming to program HVAC controllers, but even line code. And actually that, I would say, even with the GCL plus, which is great, because the Python programming that they're already starting out with, now they know that there's syntax, it's syntax based and stuff like that. And so GCL plus, that's absolutely important to make sure that your indents are appropriate as it's going through
it
the
doesn't
statement.
work. We've got specific like coding activities in that Python unit that it's actually they learn to like code a Simon game, where the lights flash and then you got to remember the sequence.
Okay.
And so it's these, embedded loops, and it's all about your indentation, and you get it wrong even by a space, the whole thing doesn't work. So yeah, totally. And and that's just highlighting it. It's exposure. It's giving them the confidence, but also the experience of knowing what's out there and what's possible, so that they'll be ready to step into it. We're not saying, and actually we get very, we don't get many that go right into programming. We do have some, because we get, I think like you were describing, any given cohort, we do have like a range of experiences that come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we have had some that have had a coding experience or even a CS degree. And so they have been able to transfer right over into some more like programming specific roles.
Great. I mean, it just, to see, like, I'm actually in awe. Like, I've been sitting here, and obviously you can't see my face right now, but I've actually kind of had this slack-jawed approach, and it doesn't happen very often. Matthew can tell I don't really get impressed with many people, but I'm certainly impressed with your vision and your approach and how you want to work with this. So I mean, this is absolutely a project that I want to sign on.
Awesome.
You and I are definitely going to talk for sure, because
Yeah, I look forward to it, Charles.
you definitely have hit a lot of those things. So I'd like to just switch gears just a little bit here. I know that I don't know how much more time you have left here, but just a couple things here. So we were talking about this the building here with Delta, and so we went from not having anything to
Right.
like you said, like truly a dark building, but obviously we're starting to get into more, to make it a little more efficient. So let's talk about green jobs. So you focus on providing opportunities with the building automation sector. So how do you see the evolution of green jobs impacting the communities you serve? And what roles would you play to ensure equitable access to those opportunities?
I mean, it, for us, like our focus is clearly on building automation. And so I think I went a little bit into like why we chose that because, I saw the green jobs wave back in 2012 when I was teaching high school math and started to create, some programs that I thought would connect to that. And this is one thing. It, it's it's uh, it's a focus on the quality of the job. So um, if the job is composting, that can be a great summer job experience and give a young person that first experience with showing up on time and being reliable. Um, it's not something that necessarily has a strong future. Now, even as I say that, there are some composting companies that are actually starting to use controls to monitor their process. So that's how the expansion of controls across industries is really a cool topic. But um, so so when you say green jobs, I mean we're just really focused there. Now it is an approach where, and again this goes back to teaching, where what I saw in many educational settings is that there's they talk about like a choice and setting up programs and saying like we don't want to pigeonhole anyone or try to force anyone into something that they might not be into. The result that I saw there was that there really wasn't choice because there was no option at the end. There were no definite skills. You were prepared for nothing. So this focus, like a deep focus, really looking at one job, BAS field technician,
Mhm.
is a strategic approach because it actually that really pointed approach leads to choice. It
Sure.
actually gives an immediate opportunity for that job. But we have graduates now who are going into like logistics, sales, um, uh, design, digital design. Some are going into more of a programming role, and some are going into more like a mechanical field tech or a low voltage wiring tech, right? So there is actual choice there because of our like really intense focus on a high value, immediately employable set of skills. So I think that's more for me, more the story than saying um, green jobs. Like
Sure.
this area, it is about efficiency and it saves money, and that's why it still has such an incredible future ahead of it. Um, it's not just centered on making our air cleaner and more breathable. It does do that, but it's also saving building owners like a lot of money, and that's got to be key. And I think going back to like how it's actually part of the story why BAS companies have so much trouble hiring talent is so many industries are looking for a more and more narrow um, like set of skills, like a more and more common, I guess I would say, set of
Hmm.
skills. I mean, you can look across pretty much any industry and the control based system of sensors and actuators is what the whole industry is. You can look at farming and
Hmm.
it's more like a BAS technician than a person with a hoe or you know digging in a ditch. Um, and warehousing or choose an industry. And so all of these industries are competing for the same people with a similar like a set of skills or at least a disposition to develop a similar set of skills. And so the focus is on, again, coming back to that practical side of our mission. We've got to be reaching where we haven't been looking. There's just too much competition and there's not enough people. So let's develop it from the street up.
Yep. No, agreed. I tell you, the first green building that I actually did was in 2007. Um, I was at a college campus in Maryland, in Southern Maryland specifically, St. Mary's College, Goodpasture Hall, if I remember correctly. I believe that's what it was. And watching how some of the things were green, and like a lot of it was not with like building automation controls at all, but like, hey, we have waterless urinals, and
Yeah.
we have a gray water system that we're doing. And while some of that stuff is while some of that stuff people are, we are putting in gray water systems now and stuff like that. No, I actually, I think you hit the nail on the head on that. I think it was a fantastic answer. Fantastic answer, completely.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's
Um,
it's
okay.
gotta it's gotta all come together. I don't know. Sometimes you hear like the triple bottom line, or um, but it's this theme that I've been talking about, which is yes, it's mission based and it's practical. It has to work within a market.
Hmm.
It's going to be a real solution to a real like challenging problem. Um, it's not just stepping in and saying, "Oh, let's create a workforce development program and see if we can get people jobs." We really stepped into it, looking at this really purposefully and making the choice to BAS based on all of these factors: opportunity, need, and the promise of a advancing future.
So, our, technology, our industry is, we're now approaching, I think we're approaching a time where we are wanting to rapidly evolve extremely. Um, I think faster than any other time, that we had, even from the earlier stages of DDC. And sure, we wanted to do like energy savings and whatnot, but now, especially getting into the IoT things, and people want to do containers and all kinds of apps, and they want to do stuff with the
Yeah.
cloud and all that. So understanding how quickly evolving our landscape is becoming, how does Stacks and Jules stay agile and adapt its programs to remain relevant and effective?
It's the number one thing is what got us here in the first place, which is our industry relationships. We were just we were in Charlotte, hosted by Rob Murchison of Intelligent Buildings and Styles Corporation and Realcomm at an event that was highlighting like a super smart, I think rated one of the top most smart buildings in the U.S. Right, and even as we pulled in, like I was going to ride over there, and it's that whole thing where to get into the parking lot, you're just using your phone, and because you did that, now it knows you're there, and you walk up to the elevator. There's not a button to push; it just opens up and it brings you to where your destination is based on the schedule it knows you have. I mean, it was like all of those things that we've been hearing about, and some of those applications were happening. And so that's how we know we're engaging. We're in these buildings. We're working with. I think McKinney was
Oh yeah,
the
McKinney.
integrating partner. Distech. It was Distech Controls. So we have a relationship there. Um, and so we're not like trying to guess. Oh, where's this going? We're not the experts in that. What we're experts in is making the complex accessible and repeatable. That's what our expertise is. And so the content that the is the outcome that's coming from our industry partners. They're telling us what they want to see, and our expertise is to be able to transfer that to the people coming out of the program. So it's just a really exciting time, and BAS is right there, and the BAS technician, because all of these applications require that reliable and consistent flow of data, and that is the skill really that we are training towards. Establish and maintain the consistent, precise, and reliable flow of data.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And that Realcomm was that the one it was just after AHR, right? It
Yeah,
was
that's right.
like
Yeah,
literally the
it's
day after.
called
Yeah.
Beyond Bricks
Okay.
in Charlotte. Yeah,
Okay.
really great group of people, and I'm really excited to say one of the partners there is Goodwill. They have a really great office, the Southern Piedmont Goodwill, and so we're working with them towards launching a program in Charlotte in 2026. So
Oh, that's
um,
great.
yeah, I think it'll be our first non-New York City program, and it's just a really great community to be starting to step into.
Yeah, I mean Charlotte's really booming. You've got, you obviously got UNC Charlotte there. Um,
Yes.
actually you mentioned Piedmont, so it's the CCPC, so the Community College of Piedmont. That I've been there
Yeah.
once. They have an HV they just have a straight HVAC
Right. Not much in
class.
the way of controls.
Yep.
And we went to Carrier has a big Carrier part of Carrier University there, but similarly, it's mechanical. It's really not
Sure.
controls focused. So there's a need for controls really focused training in that community, especially because there's a lot of new building, and that new building is jammed full of really advanced technology. Who's going to operate it? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to get the ROI that has been promised as it's been designed in.
You may want to check out Wake Tech in Raleigh, North Carolina as well.
Right.
Um,
Definitely very familiar with them and their programs. Yeah, I think they're like a top model.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they do. And you talked about analytics. Do you currently have anything? So obviously we're focusing on building automation, but
Yep.
I think data analytics is becoming really important in building automation because people want to be able to, create, all these reports and analyze their data. So how, as that's becoming more and more crucial, do you have anything currently in your curriculum that does like a data analytics training into programs, or do you envision that happening?
It's definitely like it's not an official part of the program, but this comes back to that what we call the DAB Lab, Digitized Automated Building Laboratory, and that's that project we're doing with Delta Controls.
Okay.
I mean, that will be a lot of analytics. I mean, the first stage we won't do any controls. We're not going to like be able to control anything. We're just going to be monitoring, and so we're going to be developing. It's really right now an extension. So it'll be a paid internship for a limited number of graduates. We'll be able to go in and actually work in that building, learning to use the Delta platform, to analyze, very focused functions within the building, and then work with our engineering partners to come up with um, steps to improve the performance of the building. So that is coming on now. Something that we've done. I haven't really touched on this because it's a smaller part of our program, but we do maintain a high school program. So there's one high school in New York that we maintain a training program with, and we've done a really cool project with them, which has been in partnership. So a great partner of ours, Steve Crow, who's with Jackson Controls now, and for several years now. So there's Resolute Building Intelligence is a FDD platform. And so they do a lot of work with Chicago Public Schools. So our New York City public high school students are learning to use this FDD platform, looking at real-time data from a Chicago public high school.
Oh, wow.
And it's very focused. We're starting off with the most common, right? Which I'm sure you can guess what that would be. It's set points and so they're learning to use that to identify where likely there's set point issues, and especially versus occupied versus unoccupied and scheduling. But they are, like, when they're finding them, and then they're writing tickets to the staff there at Chicago Public Schools. So a really cool analytics project.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like, I like the fact that, while obviously you're in New York, it's very clear that people are buying into your program enough to want to venture out, even further. So obviously, you have, you've got Charlotte right now, and that's coming in 2026. So, real quick, because I know we are just about probably that time where that we need to go. What does the roadmap look like for Stacks+Joules?
Yeah, well, certainly we're going to maintain a big focus on New York. We're developing that Dab Lab project with Delta Controls. We're continuing to work with Distech to develop there, and just continue to roll out really high level talent and opportunity in New York. Then we are now really focused on getting our first second city, and we're going to learn from that what it takes to replicate in another market, because having done, we're going to limit that to one so we can really learn. And then we have aggressive plans to go to, like, okay, let's try it at five cities. Let's start to really push this out into communities across the United States, and hey, other places as well. So I think that's what's exciting about this industry, right? I mean, there's just boundless opportunity, and there's a high level of need, and enough need that, partnering with Smart Buildings Academy, seeing the community colleges that are starting to bring in some programs. It's really not an issue of competition. It's we all need to be in this together at many different starting points, because the need is just so high. So I'm just bullish on the future.
Good. Well,
I see where that getting that cyclical pattern that you guys have going in other cities would be very beneficial to the industry as a whole. And it's something that I've thought around. I've talked to, Mark Peacock, right, Mike?
Yeah. Yep.
Mark and I have talked about approaching you guys about, like, looking at your template of what you do and the possibility of transferring it over to other cities. Like, I think Kansas City would be a very applicable place. Chicago would be a great place to do it. Minneapolis would be a good place. So
Kansas City would be good. I mean, my wife is actually from Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
So, I mean, the Charlotte connection, if anyone knows about college basketball, I get a little bit of a heat from my wife, who's a big Jayhawks fan. So maybe I need to up, getting out there to Kansas City. But yes, that's what we're looking at. We're looking to systematize our ability to replicate. And it's not easy because the biggest challenge is finding the instructors, because it's hard to find, companies can't hire people to do this work. So assuming you can just move in and hire someone who's going to be ready to run a class is not, it's not a way to plan for the future. So we
Right.
have a method that's worked in New York, which is really awesome. Basically, just in short, we hire from our graduates and then train them to take over the training. And they're doing it incredibly successfully. We just had our best outcomes, and John and I did not teach. I think I was in the class for a total of maybe 4 hours over the whole course of the course. And a little embarrassing, but really just gives me incredible pride. Those instructors who are program graduates had better outcomes. We had our largest cohort ever, 26, 24 graduated with all, having accomplished all components. On the EPA 608, which is a very rigorous exam, 25 out of 26 passed it. That was our best ever.
Nice.
So my point is, our method of training trainers from among our graduates is really paying off in New York. And that's what we envision it's going to take in order to get going in a new market, is to get that cycle going. So we go in very intensely on the first cohort. From that, we hire, I think I was in, a couple that'll become sort of trainers in training. And so then you do another cohort where you're training them to be able to train. And then by the third one, you're starting to step back and they're starting to step up with some coaching. And after that year, it takes about a year and 3 different cohorts to get there. That's when I think I was got the trainers. You can hire more trainers as you need and go through that process, but it really starts to roll. I think I was in.
It's sort of like a gestation process.
Yeah. Which does mean, it takes time, takes a year, and that's expense. We've got to be able to figure out how do we get people from New York into these markets for that year. So yeah, there's some real challenges to it, but we're getting there. We're going to do it. I think
I'd be pardon my French, I'd be damn proud as well. To see the fruits of your fruits of your labor, and understanding that now you don't need to be, now that you have this system in place, that it's becoming, this well-oiled machine. So then you can sit back and this is my hard work here. These are what these people are doing now, and now they have a sense of pride in growing that community as well. So I think, really, absolutely.
These are good people. These are just really good. They're good people. They're taking care of their families. They're funny. They're contributing, community members. It's just awesome.
Well, that's you just hit the most important thing, and I've told Matthew this a billion times. And so, as a hobby, I just retired, but I was a high level judge in the Magic the Gathering community, and one of my roles was to train judges. And my philosophy was, I can teach you about rules and policy all day long, but I can't teach you how to be a good person. And I think the same thing applies here, right? Like you can teach them all the skills, but you can't teach them how to be a good person. They have to innately be a good person.
Yeah,
I think giving people the opportunities that Mike's offering also encourages the good side to shine. And as we have people coming into the industry with soft skills, like Mike was discussing earlier, instead of identifying those character problems later on and trying to combat that on the other end, just makes our entire ecosystem better. It makes a more positive ecosystem for all of us.
Yeah. And it's so encouraging that there are so many good people. Both among those that we're training, but like Charles, you're here just saying again and again, I want to get involved. I want to
Yeah.
volunteer my time. Matthew, we've known each other across years now, and it's leading to these types. It's each relationship is really amazing, and I don't know how to put it. Like, it's not uncommon. It's like this great source of hope for me is that there are a lot of really, really good people out there, both that are looking for opportunity to get hired, but who are, like yourselves, professionals looking to get involved and do something good for good people. So, so it is there. So and to just, I know our conversation's going over here, but that point around like it's an innate. It's it probably is innate, but it's also often very hidden. And there's a lot, like when you're in a low wage job, the what you are typically experiencing, say it's like in retail, like they have to chew through people, right? It's an environment that has to. They cannot let people rise up because they can't pay them.
That's right.
And so there's almost a strategically built in little bit of a nasty work environment because you got to have people not get comfortable and want to stay. So if that's your only experience with work, you start to think that in order to get ahead or to maintain your place, you got to be kind of like shifty or underhanded. I mean, that's what it literally takes sometimes in those positions to get ahead. So it's not that they're a bad person. Well, it's that in order to survive in that particular environment, it's actually a sign of intelligence that they're adapting their behavior to try to be successful. So we're arresting that and saying, like, look, this is a career. This is the difference between a career and that job.
Yep.
Is a career. It's about the relationships that you keep, and it's about the trust that people have in you. And so it's a big part of like teaching people how to operate in this way better environment. And so they're actually stepping into it more as themselves than they are when they're in that, like, less good or supportive environment of a low wage job. Then
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You are. That's a great perspective. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Mike, thank you so much for taking.
Thank you, guys.
You're
Appreciate
very
it,
welcome.
Mike.
But thank you for taking the time out of your day to, in the evening, no less. You and I are both on Eastern time. I'm assuming you're still in New York right now.
Yep.
And
I'm actually up in Maine, but that's still on the East Coast. Yep.
Yeah, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. So,
cool.
But no, thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. So no, really, I've really enjoyed. I think this has been my favorite podcast so far to record.
Thanks,
really,
guys. I really enjoyed talking with you. Yeah.
Well, that's all we have today. Stay curious and remember to give a hand up instead of a handout. I'm Charles.
And I'm Matthew.
And this has been It's a Controls Problem.
So yeah, it's just a really bright future for a young person.